Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the one with the recapping, the Friends edition. How is everybody doing today? As usual, I am your friendly neighborhood soda, joined by my good friend Ben Rayner. How are you doing on this very beautiful day?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Looking forward to talking about this one. There's good stuff in this season that I can't wait to get into.
Yeah, me too. This is easily the biggest season that Friends has ever had. And oddly enough, it's season two. In
It,
terms of where it ranked in television, it was the third highest ranked show of its year. And in terms of views, it had 52.9 million people view this season, which is the most it's had in its entire run, with the exception of the final season with 52.5.
Let me ask you something. Would you say this is the most iconic season of Friends?
It has probably one of the most iconic episodes of Friends, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue against that. No.
Family, and all this. I'm not going to say.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely on the list. You just want to hop right into it, and as usual, let our thoughts take us as we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so
My
what's your
number, my number five, the one where Eddie won't go.
punt?
Okay.
So my number five is the one where Heckle dies.
That's my honorable mention.
Okay, so Mr. Heckles, who's the downstairs neighbor of Monica and Rachel, he suddenly passes away, and as a final screw you to the gang, he leaves all his possessions to Monica and Rachel, and pretty much they have to clean up the apartment and get rid of it. And while in the midst of doing that, Chandler realizes just how much he had in common with Mr. Heckles, and he kind of goes through like a mini midlife crisis. Because they were both voted the most funniest in school, most likely to succeed, and all that stuff. They both were picky about their choice in women, like similarly and stuff. And it kind of drives Chandler to realize he's gonna die alone. Yeah, this was a really funny episode. Probably one of my favorite moments is when the gang realizes that yes, they really are that loud. Something about the echo in Heckle's apartment. So he grabs the broom and he starts hitting the roof. And he realizes what he's doing. He's like, ah! So he realizes he really is turning into Mr. Heckles. And then the subplot of this, you have Phoebe, who infuriates Ross by claiming evolution is just a myth. And he spends the whole episode trying to prove to her that no, it's not a myth, it's a scientific fact. But then she finally gets to him and says, "Can't you just put your ego aside just once and let's let it admit that there is a slight possibility here?" And she finally does. And her reaction was, "Ooh, I didn't realize you caved so fast."
You this is one of the first of two appearances by Janice this season, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
because Chandler's answer to his midlife crisis is to call Janice, and it turns out she's pregnant and married.
Right. Yeah, I like this episode quite a bit.
Yeah, Mr.
And
Heck, short-lived character. He only appeared like 4 episodes, I think. One more after this, but that's in a flashback.
right, so the one I'm thinking, okay. Uh,
Yeah,
my favorite Hancock moment is when I listened to be season one, is he got the monkey to come back with him and he put him in the tutu.
yeah,
One of the funniest Hancock moments.
yeah. Isn't this where he says its name was Bob Buttons? Yeah,
Over murder buttons.
yeah. Okay, so what is your number four?
They might be punching again, but the one after the Super Bowl.
That's on my honorable mentions.
Really?
Yes, it has one of my favorite Chandler moments in it, but unfortunately wasn't enough to put it on the list.
Okay, well, there's one where there's a two-parter. The first part shows is dating a woman played by Brooke Shields, who he convinced he's really not going to drink the wine. And the whole episode, he tried to meet the doctor, and then when he finally convinces and tries to convince her, she she won't listen to him. And then Jake is not to play along, and what is it? Throws drinks in. So he's saying,
Yeah. Everyone gets in and throws drinks at him, and then Chandler even joins in. And that's for not leaving up the toilet seat.
and then the second part was is trying to reconnect with Marcel, who is doing a movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme for some reason. Anyway, one keeps getting struck out, but at the end of the episode, wait, no, am I reading a part one or part two?
Well,
anyway,
the Marcel stuff covers both parts.
Okay, the other part one, like King Kings, when the lion speaks tonight.
That's how it ends. The very beginning of the Marcel part is he has to go to find him in California because he sees him in a commercial.
Right. And then King sings that song at the end, and that makes myself remember.
Let's not forget Joey's.
I have a feeling I have no way to prove that. This could that have been improved by Matt Lamont?
Maybe not. I looked up. As I've been going, I've been reading trivia in the episodes, and they never mentioned that. There are plenty of improv moments, but that was not mentioned as one of them.
I know where it is. Yeah. And then the thing about Chandler meeting somebody from his high school who asked him out, he granted acceptance in a whole plot to what, get him naked?
Yeah, so basically what happens, they went to elementary school together, and during the middle of a school play, he pulled down her pants, and she got the nickname Susie Underpants. And so 20 odd years later, they happen to run into each other on this movie because she is a production assistant. And she, start warming up, start making out and stuff. And she convinces him one night before they go on a date, a double date with Joey, and Ross happens to be there, to wear women's underwear. So they're at the restaurant, and this is my favorite fucking part of this.
Take it away.
Yeah, she's like, "I'll meet me in the bathroom." So he's like, "I'm going to the bathroom." So they go into the bathroom. They start making out. They go into a stall. She convinces him to take off his clothes, and while he's turned around so she can look at his butt, she sneaks out of the stall and grabs his clothes and says, "This is revenge for 20 years earlier," essentially leaving him there in women's panties. So he's freaking out in the stall. Joey comes in. He's whistling something to himself. Chandler reciprocates the whistle. Joey's like, "What are you doing in there?" Chandler's like, No, don't look. So of course he goes and he looks. He's like, "Nice tushy." Or is that Ross? Anyways, so they see him. He sees him standing there. Ross comes in and Joey's like, "Hey, Ross, Chandler's here. And Chandler's over here in women's underwear." So they're both standing on the toilets looking. Another guy walks in. And there's the Sue. So how do they get Chandler out of there? They unhook the door to the stall, and he walks out carrying it, pretty much bare ass naked underneath, just right through the restaurant as if he's got no shame. Yeah, it's just so funny.
I love Chandler Bing.
Oh yes,
I love him.
Is Shenandler Bong.
Miss Shenandler Bong.
Yep.
And meanwhile, Monica and Richard fighting over the restaurant, but who gets to date Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, and then originally Monica's the one that likes him. Rachel goes up to talk to him. She gets asked on the date. Monica sabotages it. Rachel sabotages their date by saying that Monica's up for a threesome with Drew Barrymore. Yeah. Phoebe's yeah.
Classic 90s shenanigans. Gotta love it.
Oh, God, yeah. This is so very 90s. And it's funny, as the series progresses, I'd probably say right around season 4, the look of the show stops being very 90s.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the way they dress, the way they look, it looks like people would today. It's pretty funny.
What animal from, Matt?
The one with the lesbian weddings.
Okay, interesting.
Well, the reason why I like this is because basically Ross has a moment of growth, as a period of growth in here. So Ross isn't confident enough to accept attending his ex-wife Carol's lesbian wedding to Susan. Because this wedding caterer had a bad accident, Monica gets the job, a first for her, but can't get it done without generalized slave labor. Well, that's a weird way to write that in here. Joey has his first TV appearance as Dr. Drake Ramori in Days of Our Lives and shows the friends some acting tricks used there. Phoebe's 82-year-old client Rose died on her massage table, and her spirit went into her. Now she has 2 crazy personalities and an octogenarian's agenda. Rachel was all nerves for her mom's first visit since she blew her wealthy wedding to Barry, but actually her happiness and poverty inspires Mrs. Green, who never worked but cracks at everybody, to leave Ross's dad and cheerfully join the crazy modern girl's life. Everybody attends the wedding, and when Carol's parents won't give her away, Ross is the one who actually steps up and does the right thing at the end. So there are several different things going on in this episode, the main plot being the wedding, and how Ross is having a hard time dealing with it. And throughout the whole episode, he says, no, I can't do this. Like, this is too hard for me. But then when Carol's parents say that they don't support it, what does he do? He steps in and he does the right thing, and he gives Carol away at the wedding. And him and Susan finally reach a moment of, I guess, a truce, as you could say.
Right.
Basically, if it wasn't for Ross, the wedding wouldn't happen.
Okay, a couple of things I wonder to ask. Do you think Ross would have the same problem if Carol was marrying a guy?
Yes, but I don't think it'll be as intense.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, is this the last time you see Susan? No.
You see her a few more times as the series goes on. Susan and Carol start appearing less and less. I think Susan's last appearance might be in season 6, maybe 5.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know we see Carol at least 2 or 3 more times. I can't remember Susan, but I'll trust you on that one.
Yeah, we do see them less and less. And then, of course, you've got the 2 other subplots, of which I guess the C plot would be Phoebe trying to figure out how to get this whole woman's spirit out of her. And basically, she talks to the guy's husband, and the husband says, well, she did say before she died she wanted to see everything. And, of course, the lesbian wedding is the moment. So in this alternate voice, Phoebe says, well, now I've seen everything, and then the spirit leaves. But the B subplot introduces Rachel's mother, played by the late, great Marlo Thomas. Now, what's significant about this is Marlo Thomas was the star of a TV show in the 1960s called That Girl. And basically, there's a lot of similarities between the character of Rachel and Anne-Marie from That Girl, so that's why they cast her. It's perfect casting.
Oh, wow, I never realized that.
Yeah, she was, because like Jennifer Aniston was like that girl in the 1990s, so it made sense. Why not have the actual that girl as her mom? And funny enough, there's an episode later in the season where Phoebe's wearing a that girl T-shirt, an actual T-shirt from that time. Yeah,
wow,
it's the one she's wearing in the football episode.
Oh, that was in the series, not the season.
No, in the season, the football episode, the Thanksgiving football episode.
Yeah, that was season 3.
Is it? Yeah, Chandler's really skinny, that's right. Yeah, but and anyways, so she comes down because she realizes that Rachel didn't marry her, Barry, but unfortunately Mrs. Green did, so she wants to divorce Rachel's father, and this is how she tells her. And Rachel's having a hard time dealing with it, of course. But Rachel's mom's now trying to live the life, and she's happy that she got hit on by several women at the party, at the wedding. She even mentioned smoking marijuana, which is a pretty funny moment. Yeah, it's just a whole bunch of shenanigans trying to deal with a mother who's finally letting loose.
So when you say the lesbian wedding, would you say this was ahead of its time?
Yes, because now, granted, I don't remember much TV shows from this time, but I don't remember everyone having this prominent of a story of a same-sex storyline.
Right. The only one I can think of that comes close is Will Grace, and I don't think that started yet.
That was after. Yeah, that started a few years later.
Yeah. Ellen. When was the Ellen show on? Do you know?
It was around this time. I'm just not sure when did Ellen DeGeneres, when she came out.
Okay. It was like halfway through that show.
But I will still say Friends is ahead of its time than the other ones because basically the lesbian storyline was there from episode 1.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so what is your number 3?
Mike get punted? I'm not sure. The one with the prom video.
Yep.
Okay, what's number 3?
So it is the one with 2 parties.
I forgot about this one until a minute ago. Go ahead.
Okay, so just give me a second to bring up the plot summary on this one. Uh, Trying to find a good plot video thing. Oh man, they don't give you much. So basically, it's Rachel's birthday, and Monica only invites Rachel's mother to the birthday, who is going through a contentious divorce with Rachel's father, to the birthday party. But then all of a sudden, Dr. Green unexpectedly arrives. This was the first episode with Dr. Green, correct?
Yeah.
Played by another late great actor, Ron Liebman. And so he shows up to the party, and because Rachel does not want to be in the same room with them because all they do is argue about the divorce and stuff like that, the group throws an impromptu second party in Chandler's closet. So basically the whole thing is there's a subplot about Monica trying to have the cooler party, but it's all, of course, going to be at Chandler and Joey's. Rachel and Ross are bouncing between both rooms because they definitely don't want to see the 2 parents together. Rachel becomes incredibly upset over what's going on. She becomes very overwhelmed. Chandler is the one who consoles her because he's the only one whose parents have gone through divorce, so he understands. And then you have probably the best scene at the end is when everyone's leaving. They're in the hallway with Rachel's mom, and the dad's trying to leave. So what does Joey do? He grabs her mom and he spins her around and he lays a long ass kiss on her that causes her to slump. Like a true Joey kiss. And then Mr. Green leaves, and then Mrs. Green leaves, and disaster is averted. Oh, and let's also not to forget the subplot of Ross going back and forth trying to get Mr. Green's stuff, and Mrs. Green is saying that, Rachel, you're dating a man who's just like your father, because Ross pretends to smoke, he pretends to wear the bifocals, he pretends to drink the same drink as Mr. Green. It's just like, oh my god, that is too much effort.
Can I just say, I like Richard's mom, but Richard's dad, in my top 5 of the recurring characters on the show.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Isn't it so funny? And I don't want to say reaction, his relationship with Ross,
Oh god.
it gets funnier and funnier.
Yeah, because he keeps calling him Wethead and all this stuff. But here's a little bit of trivia about Ron Liebman. When he was originally offered the role of Rachel's dad, he turned it down without a second thought, as he considered himself a serious dramatic actor and was uninterested in doing a TV sitcom. When his daughter found out he had been offered the role, she begged him to take it, mainly so that she could meet the cast of the show. He finally agreed to do it when he found out that he could play Dr. Green with a slightly dark streak in his persona. He had never seen the show or knew anything about the cast, so when he met them for the first time, he mistakenly assumed that Lisa Kudrow was Jennifer Aniston, which led to initially confused Kudrow to wonder why he kept talking to her about Rachel Green.
Yeah.
And another trivia, this is the only episode in which both of Rachel's parents appear, even though they have no scenes together.
Yeah. But they were divorced, so why would they appear together?
Yeah.
Unless he was getting married, spoiler alert, never mind.
Okay. So what is your number 2?
The one you watched adventure, you know.
Not on my list. Not on my list.
I like this episode. Two main things happen in this episode. Watch adventure finally make love and consummate their relationship.
Yep. In a pretty romantic setting.
Oh, God, yeah. And Monica gets a boyfriend in this episode.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Wait.
So, what? Did you say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think this is the episode where we meet Richard.
Naturally.
I'm looking, he's not even listed in the cast.
It has to be.
Oh, wait, sorry. I'm looking up at the stuff on my number 2. I'm sorry. Never mind.
Thank you.
Completely ignore me.
How many never mind.
No. I'm my bit of a spoiler. My number 2 is a couple episodes before this, so I was looking at the stuff on my thing. That's
Okay,
why.
so, yeah, Monica goes to Kevin's friend's house to help Katie on him. Also, kind of a side note, this is the first time Monica and Phoebe Katie are jumping together.
Yeah,
We come back a few more times.
it does. Yeah.
And who does he go to work for? The one and only Tom Selleck.
Yeah, it's Dr. Richard.
Who then got off a divorce and he, they have chemistry. They hit it off. Meanwhile, Ross and Richard keep trying to find the perfect time. The first time they tried to, she keep snapping him. Wait, snapping or laughing?
Slapping. Joey's laughing.
Okay. She makes snap. I forget what happened the second time, but the final time they go to the museum, they go to the observatory, and they finally consummate the relationship.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on this episode?
So this is a fun episode. And like you mentioned, it is the first appearance of easily Monica's best boyfriend outside of Chandler, Dr. Richard Burke. A little bit of trivia on this. Every time that Tom Selleck entered a scene, there was a long standing ovation. So afterwards, when all the audience went home, they had to re-record all his entrances.
Okay.
Which, I mean, it's Tom Selleck. Why wouldn't you? Because this is not too long after Three Men and a Baby, Three Men and a Little Lady. So Tom Selleck still had some clout. He was still a big deal in 1995.
Yeah, I would argue he's not a big deal.
But 1995 compared to now, totally different.
Okay.
Like I'm sure he would get a good reaction and stuff now, but I mean back then, like dude was like had an iconic look. It was Magnum fucking PI.
He could have been. I think Vinny even called him James Bond. He would have been an interesting James Bond.
He was actually considered for the role earlier in his career. Funny enough.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Overall, this is a fun episode and an introduction to a really great supporting character for the show. Yeah.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is the one where Eddie won't go.
Right.
So this was tough because this is the final episode in what basically a 4-part arc of sorts. Joey gets his option. I'm just going to do a brief rundown of what it is.
Okay.
Basically, Joey gets his option re-up for Days of Our Lives. So he decides that he's going to move out because he's never lived on his own. So he rents an apartment. Chandler eventually rents out the apartment to this gentleman, Eddie. Joey immediately regrets the move, blah, 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 all this stuff. There's a funny scene where they're both staring outside the window while it's raining, but Joey's sitting outside of this decoration that's raining while the real rain's happening outside. It's typical Joey stuff. So basically, that's part of the couple episodes, and all of a sudden, the second part episode of this, Dr. Amori dies because Joey's an idiot and says that he makes up all his own lines. So the writers kill him off, having him fall down an elevator shaft. And then, so he needs to find a place to stay. Now, this is where the one where Eddie won't go picks up. Even accommodating gentleman Chandler loses it when he finds out Eddie has been sneaking into his bedroom to watch him sleep. Now, I should preface this, as the episodes progress, Eddie's been proving more and more crazy. When the girls read a pseudo-hardcore feminist bestseller, it quickly stirs trouble when between Rachel and Ross and amongst the 3 girls. Now Joey has lost his job. His 2-envelope visa bill leaves him no other choice than to audition for a measly part beneath a former soap opera star's dignity, and standing by as fuck, they really are terrible at writing this. And standing by as unpaid stuff is carried off, except a porcelain dog, which Ross ransoms after regretting having told Joey to do anything for material security as he would. Since Edley simply forgets his move marching orders, Chandler first spends the night at Monica's, but then finds the perfect way to solve both his and Joey's problems. So twice in this episode, Chandler kicked Eddie out. Eddie says, "Yeah, okay, I'll move out," but then he immediately forgets the next day. The first time Chandler shows up, and Eddie's dehydrating fruit and other things. The second time they're in the coffee house, and Eddie walks in with a mannequin head, saying he can use it as a chip dip, and then to prove to everybody just how crazy he is, they ask him what him and Chandler did last night, and Eddie tells this whole story about how they went to Vegas and Chandler won the jackpot and all this stuff, and it's like, yeah. So they figure, okay, he's gonna be crazy. We're gonna trick him. So how does he do that? Chandler changes all the locks, has Joey move in very secretly, throws all of Eddie's stuff outside, and convinces him that he never lived there. And Eddie completely agrees.
Yeah, great episode. It's my number 5. I love it. I mean, that review at the end when Joey's back,
Yeah.
it gets me every time.
Yeah, it's
yeah, I mean, but you have to take a second and there's what is it called? Disbelief happening here because you get the lock machine, you're showing the move all your stuff back in. For all that to happen that fast, that could be realistic in New York or anywhere.
yes, it would be, but I do have something to speak an disadvantage of the suspension of disbelief part. Joey could already have been out of his apartment, had all his stuff packed already.
Okay, but moving stuff in.
Yeah, okay. You're right there. And that's not the first time we do see it. There is a lot of suspension of disbelief, especially in the one where they swap apartments later on, which is future spoilers. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so you're number 1. Oh, that's on.
Yeah.
You go first.
When Eddie moves in.
Sorry?
When Eddie moves in.
Oh, okay.
The one with all the other knives.
Okay.
And the one with Hancock knives.
Okay, so I have the one with Russ, the one where Ross finds out, the one where Dr. Ramore dies, and the one after the Super Bowl. I kind of lumped them all as 2 for that one. Okay, so what is your number 1?
That's a weird one for to be my number 1, but it gets me laughing every time. The one with the baby on the butt. The one where they leave the baby on the butt.
That is a good episode, yes.
Basically, Monica made some kiwi pie. She gave someone to us. His tongue explodes because he's allergic. So he had to leave.
I want to. The way he's able to do that dialogue like that was perfect. Anyways, keep going.
So he had to leave his baby with Chandler and Joey. Well, Monica wanted him to get a shot at the ER and made him issue. They take Ben on the bus. They accidentally leave him on the bus. They have to go to the bus station to pick him up. They go to the room and there's 2 babies in the room. One with found on the time and one with sex on the diaper. So he said he had sex on because he remembered them having hands. And Saturday, I don't remember I don't know what kind. Really? I can't even say what kind of weird
Give me a moment, I'll find the line because I don't think you'll be able to make it through. Keep going.
I mean, get the baby, they go back to the apartment, everything happened.
His answer. What kind of scary ass clowns came to your birthday?
I didn't love this episode. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is one of the earlier episodes of the season. This is what, episode
2 or 3?
It's episode 6.
Okay.
This is where, for me, it really actually starts to kick into high gear. Is where it starts to become the friends that we know. There are a couple cameos in here. This is actually one episode of a 3-part crossover that involved Caroline in the City. Leah face. And there's also the third part was a show that didn't last long. So here's the basic trivia. Leah Thompson crosses over to role from Caroline in the City. The same night this episode aired, David Schwimmer appeared as Ross on The Single Guy, and Matthew Perry appeared as Chandler in Caroline in the City to keep playing off of that scene that they had together.
Wait, Leah Thompson was in this episode?
Yeah, because she runs into Chandler and Joey on the street with the baby, and she asks them how they were able to get secured adoption because her brother was trying to.
Oh shit! I didn't even realize that was here.
It's more at the beginning. It was before they got on the bus.
Okay. Shit. Man. Okay.
Yeah. And there's also 2 more cameos in this episode. One of them is the professional singer that gets hired for Central Park. She is actually singer and guitar player Chrissy Hynde of the band The Pretenders, which is actually a famous band from the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, tell me if you know the other cameo. This was one of her first roles. She hadn't quite made it yet.
No.
The actress Catherine Bell from the TV show Jag. And if that doesn't ring a bell, if you've ever seen Bruce Almighty, she is the female co-anchor that tries to seduce him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The girls on the bus that Joey and Chandler hit on.
Yeah.
Yeah, overall, funny episode. You get the Ross Monica stuff where he's being a baby. He ends up breaking her hand while getting the shot, of course. And, of course, you get Joey and Chandler being Joey and Chandler. And you're right, that line, "What scary-ass clowns came to your birthday?" Its delivery is amazing.
I'm in season 4 right now. You're out of season 4.
I'm in season 6.
Yeah, I know, but there's something about Joey and Chandler. We don't want to spoil it. It's not the same after season 4. And there's a reason why. It never got the same magic, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they definitely, they still had great scenes, but it just wasn't the same once, spoilers, Chandler moves out.
Right.
I'm with you on there.
Right. I would even say, even before that, I wouldn't really say season 5 and it's not a new change.
When him and Monica were starting to date?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the same.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Chandler started growing up.
Yeah. So I guess what my number 1 is.
Yeah, the most iconic episode ever. Take it away.
The one with the prom video. This episode, like Ben just said, is the most iconic episode of the whole series. In 1997, TV Guide ranked this episode number 100 of their list of 100 greatest episodes of all time. It is considered. Gawker did a list where it was voted the number 1 episode of all the Friends episodes, and it is generally it is the best reviewed episode and the most watched episode besides the finale of the whole show. This is this is one of the probably the most important episode too for things that were introduced.
Okay, let me think. Well, Fat Monica was already introduced, right?
Sorry?
Monica being fat, that was already introduced. Oh, really?
Yeah. So you get introduced to that. You get introduced to Rachel with her old nose.
Okay.
You get introduced to the fact that Ross used to do music.
Right.
You get introduced to the fact that Ross used to be a complete dork.
Yeah.
You see just how far back his feelings for Rachel really went. So, go ahead.
I mean, I was going to say, the B plot of this was a bracelet, right?
Yes. The B plot to this was the bracelet. Just give me 1 second so I can read this summary. So, Joey, now earning substantial money after landing a role on Days of Our Lives, gives Chandler a gaudy gold bracelet as thanks for paying for headshots and food in the past. Chandler mocks it when it scares off a potential date. upsetting Joey when he overhears. Chandler promises to never take it off again, but discovers it slipped off his wrist at some point and is now missing. He buys a replacement, but the original is found shortly afterward in Central Perk. He gives one to Joey, repairing their friendship. Monica struggles to find a job after being fired. After a disastrous restaurant review where the manager had a food play fetish, she relents to Ross's prodding to ask for money from their parents, Jack and Judy, who have visited the apartment to bring boxes of her possessions. Though Judy is disappointed she was fired, Jack encourages her to use her savings from her bank account and assures her that they will be there to lend money to her whenever she needs it. Despite this encouragement, Ross ends up writing her a check. Ross continued to seek forgiveness from Rachel after insulting her, but she tells him that they as a couple will never happen. For those who don't know, Ross, when he couldn't decide between Julie and Rachel, he writes a list, and unfortunately things go wrong when Rachel reads the list, and she pretty much reads the stuff that she hates about herself. So that was a few episodes ago. The friends decide, whilst looking through the box her parents brought, Monica finds a video of her and Rachel getting ready for their senior prom. The friends decide to watch the video, although Ross objects to everyone seeing the tape. On the video, Rachel's date, Chip Matthews, has not arrived, and Monica refuses to go to the prom without her. Judy convinces Ross to wear Jax's tuxedo and take Rachel to the prom herself. Ross reluctantly agrees, but by the time he's dressed and ready to go, Chip has arrived and the girls leave. The video ends with Ross looking disappointed and dejected. Rachel, touched by Ross's gesture, gets up and passionately kisses him, forgiving him for what happened between them. Monica later watches the video alone, which features her and Jack dancing before the prom. It suddenly cuts to Jack and Judy in bed, which disgusts her. They taped over the rest for an accidental sex tape. But anywho, basically that whole scene with the video and Rachel's reaction and Ross standing at the door it has to be the most iconic moment of the show.
Oh, definitely.
Because up until then, it was will Ross and Rachel happen? That was the thing. If you look back in history, that was the big thing on TV. Ross and Rachel. This is the episode where they finally said, "Here's Ross and Rachel," and they couldn't have done it yes, Ross was his usual turd self, which he gets worse later in the series. But it's that one selfless gesture that he was going to do for Rachel that just completely changes everything.
And there's another gesture he does in season 3 that basically ruins everything.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah, so here's some production notes from this episode. The producers had kept Ross and Rachel from being together throughout the first season, eventually bringing them together in the second season episode, The Lust for Ross, one where Ross finds out, only to split them up in the following episode. The writer, Alexa Jung, incorporated many of her own experiences into the script, in particular Phoebe's line about Ross and Rachel being lobsters, something Jung's husband once said. Aniston wore a false nose for the scene in the video, while Cox wore a fat suit. While the previous episode had already established Monica as being overweight as a child, this was the first on-screen appearance of Fat Monica. The fat suit made frequent return appearances, because it's fucking... Fat Monica is hilarious. Rachel's large nose was added because Jung believed that the characters were so good-looking you wanted to feel they had some realness in their past. At first, Schwimmer did not want to wear their afro wig and mustache because he thought he would look like Gabe Kaplan in Welcome Back, Kotter, a similarity referenced in the episode. He relented because it enabled him to tap into a part of himself that was very vulnerable and shy and incorporated it into his performance. An early script draft featured a scene in the prom video in which an episode of All My Children is on in the background. The scene was intended to feature the character Bryce, played by Gunther, as revealed in the one where Eddie won't go away.
Wow. I kind of wish that happened.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's a great episode. And
it's a very good episode. It's one of the best. This is David Schwimmer's favorite episode they ever did. Another one more final fat suit trivia. When Courtney Cox wore her fat suit for the first time in this episode, Matthew Perry walked by her without knowing who she was.
Come on.
Supposedly.
Even with it on, she still looks like Monica.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not what you... Yeah, I guess, but I mean, still, it could easily happen.
That's funny though.
Yeah. But yeah, no, this is... While the middle part of this episode where Ross is trying to come to terms with the fact that Rachel says they will never end up together can be a little awkward to watch. The whole videotape, everything that happens afterward, completely makes up for it. It is such a well done. It's so well done on everybody's part. All the actors played it perfectly. The direction was perfectly. Everything just lined up, lightning in a bottle for that moment.
And I always forget about that tag. That's a funny tag. I always forget about it.
Yeah, and Friends has some of the best tags.
Yeah, they do. And one of the things, and some of the best cold opens.
That is true.
One of my top 3 is in next season.
Okay. There's so many. You're gonna have to tell me off air, or you can tell me now because we're gonna be doing the season 3 preview.
And there were 2 comedians. Do I need to say
yes, an entirely unscripted cold open. We will definitely be talking about that when it happens. Okay, so Ben, what do we have to look forward to in season 3?
Season 3, we have a certain flashback episode to look forward to.
Yep.
We have one relationship ending. Maybe 2. One really. Well,
we have Janice date for the first few episodes of the season.
Okay.
Chandler Janice was this season.
Well, I mean, maybe 3. Yeah, I was thinking about Monica Richard.
That happened in the final episode of season 2.
No, I know about we see them pay off. We laughed about it. We see the football episode.
Yeah, we find out we meet Phoebe's extended family.
I thought that was season 2.
No, that's this season where she meets Frank Jr. and she meets her birth mom.
Okay. And we get a lot more of Janice.
Yeah, we do get a lot more of Janice. We get an episode involving the UFC, the original version of the UFC, I might add.
We get the Steelers in 2 episodes,
yeah.
But not together, separately.
We see Rachel finally leave her waitressing job and finally goes to work in the business that she belongs, fashion.
It's a little mood, but it happens.
Yep.
We get introduced to another recurring character.
We do?
Yeah.
See, this is what happens when you watch so many episodes so close together.
I'll tell you off there.
Yeah, and of course, let's not forget the beach episode that ends the season. The beach episodes, which introduces an interesting guest star who has a quirk of sorts.
Tell me off there. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everything we wanted to say about next season without spoiling it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be a really good season. Some great episodes. This is where, unfortunately, you see the effects of Matthew Perry's real life addiction because his weight shifts dramatically for the first time this season. He goes through, basically, as he admitted, he doesn't remember much of seasons 3 through 6, and that is when he's at his worst. He goes from skinny to gaining weight. He's incredibly bloated by the end of season 6. Season 7, he's completely skinny again because unfortunately he had an addiction to Vicodin and alcohol, which is the stuff he gives us in those seasons is comedic gold. And besides his physical appearance, you wouldn't be able to tell that something was wrong. But yeah, this was not a great time for Matthew Perry.
Hate this is not happening.
Oh, and let's not forget there is one of the most iconic and overly used lines of all time comes from this season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh! Originally originated from not the person who I thought.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody else says it for the very first time.
Yeah. All right. How about where can everyone find you?
Okay, so you can find me at my Instagram and Twitter at soda_the_saxman. And you can find me all over this lovely channel doing several shows with Ben here. Get Sweaty, recapping the past, or the one with the recapping in this instance, and Shoot the Breeze. And then you can also find me over my other YouTube channel, Shows of the North, every week going over what's going on, just doing reviews of the Schmodown matches of the week. And what about you, Ben? Where can everybody find you?
You can find me at, oh, I gotta change my internet. You can find me at Dan_radio on Twitter. You can find me everywhere Matt said on here and on Matt Schmodown, my whatever Schmodown show I'm on, I've been going place for years. We don't have an episode this week because there's a free-for-all that we're going to be taking up the whole weekend.
Yeah, because it starts at noon on Saturday. Oof.
Going to be fun, though. Going to be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how this goes down digitally.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've seen it digital. Don't forget, there were the horror free-for-all.
Spoilers, I actually still haven't seen that.
Really?
Yeah, so what happens with me is because of the amount of content that's on there, sometimes I miss certain episodes just so I can give myself a break, and that just happened to be one of them, and I just never went back and watched it.
Okay, well, all right.
Yeah.
They should do it. They should be able to do it, no problem.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. So yes, on behalf of myself and Ben, thank you very much for joining us for this week, and we will see you next week on the one with the recapping. Don't forget, everyone, stay sweaty and smash cancer.